Hello, welcome to Bench Talk. So let's get right into it, okay? Living in the moment. In my second video, if you've seen it, for those that are not visiting this channel for the first time, we were talking about how to live in the moment. And one of the things that I mentioned in that video was self-talk, right? So I found myself, I think it was yesterday, if not today, actually this morning, I found myself thinking, it's so easy to keep encouraging people and to push people to live in the moment, to appreciate the moment, because it really is a gift to be here and to just enjoy being here and championing your life, championing your story right where you are. But then I thought as well, what if what if here is uncomfortable? What if here is painful? What if here is difficult to bear with? Do we then continue to push people to live in the moment when their present is not ideal, when their present isn't what they want? So how do you deal with that then? How do you deal with it? How do you manage it when your present isn't what you want it to be, or it's painful? So just kind of thought self-talk is very important when it comes to championing ourselves in the moment, when it comes to living life fully in the present, right? So self-talk is basically internal dialogue that we have with ourselves. We all have this. We all have this capability of, as human beings, to have internal dialogue with ourselves, to ask ourselves questions like, oh my word, what's happening? What is just like that? What's going on? It's important that we have that as human beings, because it shows us that we are so much bigger than we imagine ourselves in the first place. Now, as a Christian, for me, it gives me an appreciation of how incredible our creation is, how incredible and how purposeful and detailed God was in creating us, right? But that's beyond the point. It's not the scope of this conversation. In this particular conversation, I want to talk about how do we manage our self-talk in such a way that we are able to fully enjoy the present, and what role does our self-talk play in helping us with managing our present, right? So now you have about three main categories of self-talk, right? You have the inner critic. That's the voice in your head that constantly tells you that you can't do it, you shouldn't do it, nobody's going to listen to you, you're not worthy of being listened to, you're not worthy of being loved, you don't deserve happiness, stuff like that. So that's the critic that is constantly evaluating your actions, your behaviors, and evaluating them in the most negative way possible. It has no scope for positivity, and the minute you see something as positive, it dismisses it as meaningless, it dismisses it as an illusion, it dismisses it as lies, but it's so focused on negativity. So that's the first part. Now, another type of self-talk that we can have is the one that makes excuses. It's the one that refuses to take responsibility for anything that is happening around you or for anything that is happening to you. Now, this is the voice that blames everybody for things happening. It can never possibly be your fault. The mistakes that you've made are not your fault, they're other people's fault. Things happening in a wrong way are not your fault, they're other people's fault. So it refuses to take responsibility. Why is it dangerous? That voice is dangerous because, one, it leaves us without any sort of control, because in that moment we are the victim. That's why it's also called the victim mindset, where you are literally just the victim of circumstance and everything is going against you and there's nothing you can do about it. It assumes that you can't do anything about what you're going through if it's negative. So you basically just live life as a victim, and life doesn't happen for you more than half the time if you have that voice that makes excuses, but life happens to you. And then the third one, those people that have this voice, you're honestly very privileged. It is the growth mindset. This is the voice in your head that says, you've got this, you can do it. It's also the same voice that when you struggle with something, that when you make a mistake, when you're not performing at the level that you should, it says to you, you can do it. Practice a little bit more. Spend a little bit more time refining your skill. You're capable of better so long as you practice and you refine yourself. This is often the voice that I call the parent that a lot of us wish we had, but also the parent that a lot of us should aim or parent that we wish we can be to our own children. This voice supports you. This voice convicts you. This voice loves you. It protects you. Okay. For me as a Christian, this voice is the Holy Spirit in me, constantly saying, "You've made the mistake. I understand. You can do better." This voice doesn't constantly remind me of my mistakes unless it is to protect me. In moments when it reminds me of my mistakes is to say, "Hey, you have behaved like this before and it didn't turn out well. Perhaps change it this time." Okay, so those are the three kind of like types of self-talk that we all have as human beings. Now, why is it important that we are aware of these voices as people? We need to be aware because otherwise you're just living life on autopilot. If you don't assess these voices, then you essentially cannot determine the source of your thinking, and as a result, it becomes difficult for you to determine why you are feeling the way you are feeling, no matter what it is, be it negative or positive. It's difficult for you to determine, why am I being happy right now, or why am I finding myself being in a giddy, joyful mood. Additionally, also when things are not going well, when you're finding yourself sad, when you're finding yourself feeling that you're in pain or you're anxious. If you're not a self-aware person, if you don't constantly assess your own thinking, if you're not aware of the kind of voices that you have in your head, then it becomes difficult to identify the source. When you can't identify the source, it becomes difficult for you to understand where your feelings come from. When it's difficult for you to understand where your feelings come from, it also becomes difficult for you to be in charge of your own behaviors. Again, you're living on autopilot. Everything is happening. And then you find yourself at a point where life is going to happen anyway. Things are going to happen anyway. And it puts you out of the bounds of control. It makes you seem as though you have no control of anything. And it's very dangerous also when you're not self-aware of your own thinking, of your emotions and your behaviors, because it's dangerous when you have negative patterns, when you have the tendency to behave in a manner that doesn't benefit you or in a manner that doesn't benefit those that you love. It can be dangerous for relationships if you're trying to lead a positive relationship with yourself and for other people. So you need to constantly be aware. That way we're also able to correct ourselves. Now, why is it important for us to correct ourselves? Because the more we correct ourselves, and not just correcting ourselves recklessly and saying, "Oh my word, you're so stupid, how could you?" But correcting ourselves in a manner that says, "You didn't do that well last time. You have acted like this and it didn't benefit you. Doing it now isn't going to benefit you." In a loving, in a convicting manner that says, "Hey, I care about you. I don't want you to trip into toxicity again. I don't want you to trip into depression again. I want to protect you." Okay. So as I said, when I was talking about the growth mindset, it's amazing. Those that have it are privileged, but also when it's not managed well, or when you're vulnerable and you're not aware, it can be very dangerous. For example, it's a beautiful thing to have a growth mindset because it constantly pushes you to do better, right? But now, what if you find yourself in a situation where you want to cheat on your partner? For example, if you have a growth mindset, you can have so many incredible ways of cheating on your partner without them finding out. That is the growth mindset. That is the mindset that says, "Hey, you've got this, you can do better." You know what I mean? You can do it without hurting anybody, and in retrospect you actually are hurting people without realizing. So it needs to be managed. All of it needs to be managed. All of us at some point have had one of those three. Some of us have been privileged enough that we mostly have the growth mindset, but monitor yourself in moments when the growth mindset leads you to do the wrong thing and to improve your skills in the wrong stuff. So just, it all needs to be managed, to be very honest. That way, we are in charge, because to be very honest, we are in charge of our own thoughts. We are in charge of our own behaviors. That's the one thing that we can call as what is control, is whatever comes from the inside. Whatever is happening outside, there really isn't much that we can do about it. So that's basically what I wanted to discuss. Basically, like, what are those three voices? What do they do? And also just learning to manage them, being self-aware enough to to manage yourself through it all. I want to thank you for watching this video. If you do prefer to read more on a topic like this, I have uploaded an article on my blog. It's called Binge Talk with Sadie.blogspot.com. I will put it on the description as well. I'll also provide a link so that you can just click away and get in there. You can make comments there. Please also comment below if you have any feedback, if you want to just have a nice chat, if you have questions, if you want me to improve in a certain area, comment down below. Like, subscribe, share with people. Let's share knowledge. Let's help each other become better versions of ourselves. So yeah, in that regard, thank you so much. I will see you in the next video.